Welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic, Zimbabwe makes compensation to numbers of the white farmers. Very embarrassing. While wanting some of the people back, where's the Pan Africanism, camaraderie, brotherhood at to help them? Where are they at? Right? It's a very interesting story in this situation on that. Just like you said, this image, Pan Africanism and the fleers don't have the juice to stop us either. But they talk about Black Americans, giggle, because that's what happens. It's an embarrassment how you have certain ones within Zimbabwe. I'm not talking about numbers of good ones. I'm talking about the ones who know who they are, who are sitting there being shown how powerlessness the personnel are to give reparations back to white farmers. And the irony of this, right, is that before Zimbabwe was called Rhodesia, after Cecil Racial Terrorism Rhodes, who was born in England. And after times and diamond mines and trying to sit there and get rid of Black Zimbabweans themselves off of their land to give to white farmers. And here it is, Zimbabwe got their independence in 1980. And here it is, 45 years later, 2025. And you still got numbers of white farmers still controlling many parts of Zimbabwe in the politicalness. That's an embarrassment. But you still got some people that have fled to America from various parts of Africa, especially some main ones, and have the nerve to try to talk about Black Americans, and they try to put themselves inside Black Americans' business of why do Black Americans need reparations? But they won't sit there and talk about, hey, won't you worry about your own Zimbabwe counterparts, right? Let me tell you what they do when you start talking about, hey, what you gonna do about helping your Zimbabwe friends and stuff like that? What you gonna do about that, huh? Why y'all worried about talking about Black Americans and how they need to how they should get reparations? While you putting yourself inside Black Americans' business, not minding your own freaking business, right? What are they gonna do about helping out their Zimbabwe friends? It's funny, but it's not, because that's what none of these fleers do, because they couldn't sit there and get things together in their own countries under major tribalism on that. So the thing about it is, I want to sit there and go ahead and share my screen, because it's definitely an interesting show topic on this, of the embarrassing and the irony, right, and the hypocrisy of numbers of fleers from various parts of Africa that have and some other places that have some nerve to talk about Black Americans, right? And they're lazy and they always talk about racism. And it's like, I'll be like, 3 words, or 2 words, or 3 words, 3 words. Scramble for Africa, right? So it's like, you got these numbers of personnel. I'm talking about the one that applies to in certain various parts of Africa, not numbers of good ones, but these coons and sellouts, they got some nerve to flee from ancient continent that they can't get situated. right? But let me go ahead and share my screen to go and get this started. Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting show. It's not going to be a long show on this, but let me go ahead and share my screen. And this hypocrisy is like, where is this old Pan Africanism camaraderie at for the Zimbabwean counterparts, right? Again. Yes, that's what they're doing. They have the nerve talking about Black Americans. Boy, the nerve. But let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, here. Give me a second. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Give me one moment here. Make sure that is on. And I want to just look at this and this the embarrassment of this part. This is embarrassing on this.
Shifting focus to Zimbabwe, the country is paying millions in compensation to white farmers whose land was forcibly seized 2 decades ago. Zimbabwe's government has announced an initial payout of $3 million to local white farmers who lost their land in the early 2000s and was forcibly seized 2 decades ago. Zimbabwe's government has announced an initial payout of $3 million to local white farmers who lost their land in the early 2000s. The farms were seized during a controversial land reform program between 2000 and 2001. Now, this is the first payment under a 2020 compensation deal between the state and the farmers. Under that agreement, Zimbabwe promised to pay $3.5 billion in total. The current payout covers 378 farms out of the 740 approved for compensation. Now, it accounts for just 1% of the $311 million allocated for the first phase. Now, it accounts for just 1% of the $311 million allocated for the first phase. The government says that this marks a step toward honoring its obligations to compensate farmers affected by land seizures. Says that this marks a step toward honoring its obligations to compensate farmers affected by land seizures. In 2000, then President Robert Mugabe launched a radical land reform. Thousands of white farmers lost their land, which was redistributed to Black Zimbabweans. The move was meant to correct historic injustices. As at independence in 1980, most fertile land was owned by just 4,000 Black farmers. But the land reform most fertile land was owned by just 4,000 Black farmers. Justices. As at independence in 1980, most fertile land was owned by just 4,000 Black farmers. But the land reforms were often violent and aggressive. Critics say that many farms went to Mugabe's political allies, while new landholders lacked the tools and training to farm effectively. In the aftermath, agricultural production collapsed and the economy crashed. Now, Zimbabwe's relations with the West also fell apart. President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who came to power after the 2017 coup, has been trying to repair ties with the West. Zimbabwe has been isolated from the global financial system for over 2 decades. It's the West. Zimbabwe has been isolated from the global financial system for over 2 decades.
But again, where are those Pan-Africanism counterparts over there in various parts of Africa helping their Zimbabwean counterparts? Embarrassing. Yes. Embarrassing.
Its economy is still burdened with massive foreign debt. Earlier this year, the government also began compensating foreign investors whose land was protected under bilateral treaties. The latest compensation move also foreign investors whose land was protected under bilateral. Earlier this year, the government also began compensating foreign investors whose land was protected under bilateral treaties.
Again, embarrassing. So you have in Africa 50 plus countries that's recognized per se. And I'm going to show you a video in a little bit about one of these sisters that also did a podcast where they had this particular hateful, tribalistic Nigerian, the one this applies to, who fled, or her parents fled to America, and she has this vile hatred toward Black Americans that she fled from various parts of Africa, fled from Nigeria, but had the nerve to talk about, hey, Black Americans, you don't want to mess with Africans. You ain't ready to go to war with Africans. And the sister just went off on her, right? It's like, just like I'm showing you here, it's like that little demonic, vile, anti-Black American hatred Nigerian, the one it applies to, that woman that was talking crazy about Black Americans, how they don't want the war with Africans. And then you see the situation with Zimbabwe sitting there being treated like a, anyway, the words and stuff like that. And so the thing about it is, like, the sister that also did a podcast, I'm gonna show you this piece of video. She just went off on that little anti-Black American Nigerian, right? Because, like, where is she at with the Zimbabwe personnel?
The latest compensation move also comes as neighboring South Africa faces tensions with the US. President Donald Trump accuses South Africa of seizing white-owned farms and has used it to justify cutting aid and expelling diplomats. Analysts say that Zimbabwe's payouts could help to repair Western relations and avoid international scrutiny.
Greeting you with...
It's a funny... Give me a second. It's a funny thing, but it's not. The embarrassing of this, again, where is that Pan Africanism type of counterparts? Right? But many of them fled over here to America from various parts of Africa, right? Having the nerve to talk down upon American Blacks, but they fled, right? And the video I'm gonna show you, when this sister Lisa Cabrera she has a great podcast as well, and she went off on this little hateful anti-American Black hatred Nigerian, the one this applies to, right? Because again, I'll look at the video I'm gonna show. It was interesting because she just went off, and I'm adding to that particular part that Zimbabwe sitting there paying reparations to white farmers, right? But you got personnel, I'm going to show you with that anti-American Black hatred Nigerian woman that I'm going to show you, and trying to get in the business about American Blacks and tell American Blacks, y'all ain't ready to get in the war because, with Africans, because there's 50 some plus countries. You see the hypocrisy of that, right? But let me go ahead and which one I want to show? Yeah, let me go ahead and show that video, because I want to close it out with something else. So let me go and show you this other video with Sister Lisa Cabrera, when she was going off on this hateful anti-American Black Nigerian woman that fled, or her parents fled to America, right? And have the nerve to talk down upon American Blacks, but she ain't fleeing herself back to Africa to help out Nigeria, right? With however numbers of tribalism problems going on in various parts of Nigeria. And again, I'm not talking about numbers of good ones, people out there, right? She's not fleeing her little sorry self over there to help out the Zimbabweans. Nope. And again, it's an embarrassing part, because Zimbabwe, the great Zimbabwe, was a great city complex in Zimbabwe, which before that was called Rhodesia after Cecil Rhodes, who was a terror. Of Zimbabwean people and various pieces personnel in South Africa. So Rhodesia was a combination of Zimbabwe and Zambia on that, until it was split and stuff like that. And Zimbabwe also got, which was southern, it was actually southern Rhodesia at the time. So until they got their independence in 1980. But let me go ahead and show this particular video. Let me share my screen. I was talking about, because the sister, Lisa Cabrera, she just went off. And it was very interesting. I understood, why she did that too. Because some of these sections of Africanism, I'm talking the ones applies to, got some nerve that it can't fix what's going on in various parts of Africa, right? But at the same time, they got the nerve to talk crazy about American blacks, but they fled their own countries in Africa, the ancient continent of Africa. I mean, some of them got some nerve. But let me go ahead and play this on this here. Okay, make sure. Oh, what's the wrong one? Oh, that's the wrong one. A second here. Because that's a different topic. That's a different topic in itself, because it was a slight bit of border part. If you saw just a half a second of it, because how many numbers of certain parts of Africans, the ones it applies to, have also snuck across the southern borders. I mean, there are some nervous and some hypocrisy going on in so many different places. So let me go back and go ahead and share my screen with the right video. Lisa Cabrera, they also did a podcast on this hateful Nigerian, whatever tribe she's from, that had a hatred for American blacks. She fled, or her parents fled to America. But like in this talk I'm talking about today, about these numbers of Zimbabwe sitting there paying, as you can see this, numbers of Zimbabweans are paying a lot of money to white farmers. The irony, right? The irony of that. Paying white farmers. And then also I'm going to show another quick video about numbers of Zimbabweans, or certain powers, wanting numbers of white farmers back. I mean, the nerve. But where's the Pan Africanism conversation on that to help out the Zimbabweans, especially the hateful ones that fled from various parts of Africa? Talking about the ones supplies to. Where are they at over there helping out the Zimbabwe people? So let me go ahead and play this.
Now, one thing, when I went online, y'all, one thing I found was people said they were nasty. People said they had attitude problems. People did not like their behavior. And people said in various countries, when they come to your country, they're committing all kinds of crime. So no, we don't need no lesson from any of you. So stop trying to get on videos talking about who we are and what we don't know and what we don't do. Shut up. Shut up, because we don't need that from you. So let me share my screen. Let's go over all these countries that had to throw these Nigerians out. But before I get to that, I want to play this Nigerian woman that thinks she got some message for us. So let me share my screen so you can hear what she got to say. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's hear what this Hamite got to say.
If one of this reached a consensus of all African
It'll get better in a second.
Everybody from Jamaica, Trinidad, Haiti, and Africa, if this meet their consent, since the Black American want to go to war, let's try, let's see. All of us that call out one day from work, all of us across the United States, all immigrants call out from work. Yes. If they want to go to war, let's see what they can prove. And also, all immigrants, like your businesses from all Black Americans, simple as that. Don't let them go into your grocery store. Don't let them go into your restaurant. Don't let them go into your salon. You want to go to war? We will. And also,
well, first of all, this dodo need to know, because of the civil rights laws in this country, you cannot deny service at your businesses because you're mad at somebody. Do you realize they can shut your business down? And when you start denying people access to a business because you're mad at them, they'll put you out of business. Do you realize that? The feds will come down on your ass. This woman don't know what she's talking about. You can't have even an African place of business in America and then say, don't allow them in your business. You can't do that. The first thing that's going to happen is the feds are going to come in on you. And when they come and investigate that you've been denying service to people, they're going to close your ass down. So before you run your mouth, you should at least learn the law of the land that you're in. She don't even know what the hell she's talking about.
And she doesn't, right? Because she's a fleer. And as you see at the bottom of the screen where it talks about on this topic, Zimbabwe makes reparations, compensation to white farmers. While at the same time, numbers of Zimbabweans are wanting the same white farmers back, right? But this little hateful little sellout coon, Nigerian tribalism type 1 who fled her own country in Nigeria, right? Won't go run back to Nigeria and fix those problems over there. She's not going to run to Zimbabwe and help them out. But you see the hatred that they have for Black Americans because they're jealous, right? It's just like when also in the description, I'll put 2 videos in the description. One where, and again, I'm not talking about numbers of good brothers and sisters in Nigeria, so we're not going to play that tactic, right? But I put 2 videos in there. One podcast I did where I was talking about how there was these various several Nigerian men that got caught in some kind of transnational, international scheme, right? But of course, this particular Nigerian demonic fraud herself, she's not going to talk about things like that because she's a demonic monster fleer herself. Vile monster hatred for American Blacks. And another video I put in the description where it was several Nigerian guys, whatever tribe they came from, that they fled. They got caught fleeing, I think, going across the Mediterranean, trying to flee, which is called Joppa. Some people might not know that word. It's called Joppa, which means that these are some of the, especially young folks out of Nigeria, who is fleeing out of Nigeria because they don't see a lot of hope. They don't see a lot of opportunities, right? Because there is various types of caste system things going on within Nigeria. And again, I'm not talking about numbers of good brothers and sisters. So the sister here, Sister Lisa Cabrera, is sitting there going off on this little hateful anti-American Black Nigerian woman who fled her own country, or if she was young, her parents fled. But she won't talk about that, right? See, the hypocrisy is a very real thing with these type of hypocrites because they're jealous of American Blacks who already helped build America. And these fleers, they couldn't build anything in their own countries. What an embarrassment.
They'll close you down. You won't have a business for long.
So we can ask all our African doctors, boycott all Black American treatment.
Okay.
Like I said.
Okay, this woman ain't too bright. If one of us came in, let's say, to an emergency room, and in that emergency room is an African doctor, the African doctor cannot look at you and say, you're a Black American, I'm not treating you. He would lose his license, his job, and he could possibly be jailed. So especially if it's a life-threatening situation, let's say it's a life-threatening situation and that doctor is on duty, he can't stand there and say, you're a Black American, I'm going to deny treatment to you. And if something happens, he goes to jail and lose his license and could be subjected to deportation. This woman is dumb. Okay? You can't overrule the laws of the land.
But because she's a fleer, this Nigerian piece of dog shit, she's a fleer, right? So again, she's jealous, and supremacists and various people within the predominant culture will look at her and listen to how she talks, and they would say, you don't get your little Negro animal dog shit out of America, where they say, well, we allowed you to come over in first place to sit there and be a buffer for us toward American blacks, right? You can look at her and tell there's coldness in her because she's a fleer on that. So the nerve, and he's talking about, well, the numbers of doctors and y'all don't treat black Americans. You be like, as if there's a gigantic amount of numbers of African doctors, and then you say, which ones? What are you talking about? Right? So this game, and you look at the demographics of some of the main personnel from Africa, and they only make up about less than, I think it was less than 2%, plus or minus, out of 100% of the population of America. The 5 main groups of sectionality of Africa, the ones this applies to, are actually, in general, makes up only around about 1.5, 2%, something like that. And black folks still make around about 12, 12.5 to maybe 14, 13, something like that. The nerve, I'm telling nerve of some of these anti-American black hatred type ones from third part of Africa is getting out of hand. Don't get it confused. There are some ones from certain parts of the Caribbean too. I'm just, that's a whole different topic in itself, because there's no Pan-Caribbean love either. Look what's going on in Haiti. You hear a lot of people jump up and down from Pan-Caribbean love, jump up and down about that. Nope. They ain't jumping up and down what's going on in Haiti. I mean, what's going on in Cuba. So, but we're not talking about that subject today.
I guess you don't look in the mirror and see how melanated you are. You have no power up in here.
None.
And if you do the things that you're saying, you know how fast you can be deported out of here? Let's go on. Girl is stupid. She ain't bright at all.
You don't want to go to war with African. Trust me. We are.
Let me tell you something, lady. You don't want to go to war on a land that's not yours.
That's right.
Okay? You don't want to go to war on a land that's not yours.
That she fled from her own country.
Because ultimately, your war will be with ICE. That's what's going to happen. Your war going to be with ICE. And all this shit you're sitting online saying, you just let somebody send this video of yours to ICE. You won't be here long. Your days will be numbered. How you going to threaten somebody in a land that's not yours? And the people you're threatening are actual citizens?
That's been around.
Are you out of your damn mind?
Who helped build a country before she was even
No,
England?
you don't want to go to war with us.
That's right.
You got the shit backwards.
That's right.
You won't be here long.
There are some hateful Africans
freaking
like her.
Country.
Hold on, I want to over talk a little bit. Let me go back.
No, you don't want to go to war with us. You got the shit backwards. You won't be here long.
54 freaking country.
And I'm just going to play this about a couple more minutes and stuff like that. And I'm going to play one other video that I want to show about the Zimbabwe thing. I'll close out the show. I make this point because, as I said earlier, for a person who probably it popped up, I did 2 shows. This particular demonic being, she fled. She's a fleer from whatever particular tribe from Nigeria. They had their own various tribalism problems that she fled from, or her parents fled from. And she has this little hatred, this demonic hatred toward American blacks and stuff like that, because there are some American blacks that are tied to some of these little black adjacent hodders, and they're a little hatefulness toward black Americans. And numbers of black Americans who are saying, no, it's time for more delineation. So you got these hateful ones that own from certain parts of Africa, the one this applies to, who fled, who've been so used to sliding under the black banner that they don't know what direction they're supposed to go now, right? But at the same time, they got so much divisiveness themselves. That's like this hateful one from Nigeria. There are hundreds of different languages in Africa, or close to Nigeria, or numbers of languages in Nigeria, and then many type of tribes in Nigeria. So whatever one she's from, she's a fleer. And she's talking about 50 some plus countries. I'm shouldn't have shown you Zimbabwe and the hell that they're going through right now. That they're the ones I'm talking about sitting there paying white farmers who took control over how much of Zimbabwe's land. And then when some of them got kicked off the land, oh my goodness, we got to give them reparation. Oh my goodness, the irony of that, right? And numbers of them want white farmers back. The nerve of that. And so you got this hateful Nigerian tribalism freak who fled Nigeria from whatever tribe she's from, that she has the nerve to try to talk down upon American blacks, but she ain't fleeing back to Nigeria, whatever her tribe is, to get that situated. She's not fleeing over to Zimbabwe to help the Zimbabwe personnel with the white farmer problem. You see these little disgusting tactics, but it's something within their mentality, these fleers' mentality, that is atrocious. It's an ingrained hatred. It's an ingrained mental neuroticism because they're used to fleeing and trying to get over people, right? And then get into America, then going to certain type HBCUs, slide under the black banner, getting scholarships and trying to blend in, and they black this and join some sororities over here and join some fraternities over there. But at the same time, behind the closed door, they're talking about black American people. The nerve, right? Of these fleers like that.
The population of African in the United States is more than your black American population.
That's a lie.
So you know.
That's a lie.
The reason why
there are not more Africans in the U.S. than our population. She's full of shit.
She's beyond. As I said this a little bit earlier, when you look up the population in the overall amount of African immigrants, they only make up, again, around about 1.5% or a little bit over 2%. And most of that demographic were coming after the year 2000. In 1980s, 1970s, you got people that weren't even talking about Africans like that, let alone certain main ones, the ones that applies to that fled. They wouldn't have been talked about like that in the 70s and 80s, like that. So she definitely know what the hell she's talking about. So she just mouthing off neurotic, anti-American black babbleness with her black adjacent hot herself, little tethering self.
There are not more Africans here than us. She don't know what the hell she's talking about. There are not more Africans in America than there are us. So we're what? 40 to 60 million?
About
so you mean to tell me there's 40 minimum. To 60 million Africans here? Nah. We would have been noticed that. We would have been noticed that if you were that big. She don't know. This woman is dumb. She don't know what the hell she's talking about.
And you can look at her aura. This aura is a reminder of a coon, a tribal version of a Nigerian coon, the one it's applies to, not numbers of some good brothers and sisters in Nigeria, the ones who know they got coons and sellouts, right? And how many numbers of Nigerians over there, especially numbers of women, that you utilize skincare cream, utilize skin bleaching over there? Oh yeah, some skin bleaching problems over there, big time, right? Over there. But they don't want to talk about that. See, this little coon right here, on a scale of 1 to 10, see, in her own country, she'd be like a 3. She would be nothing, right? So since she is discombobulating, fragmenting in her own mentality, she don't know what direction that she's supposed to say, because she can't slide under the black banner anymore, which is obviously, you can listen to her accent, because some of them don't have accents. That's a whole different topic, right? But you start talking to them and you read through what they're talking about. You say, oh, this is the tether. This is the black adjacent hotter. You know, they fled, or they mama, dad, or both of them fled to come to America and have a hatred for black Americans. This is overall, with very few exceptions of them.
It's dumb. It is not more of you here. Fool.
4% of the Democratic vote is immigrant. And out of that 64, 54 is black. So Black America, you don't want to go to war with us. At this point, I don't care if you're a Democrat or if you're
If you
Republican.
find out where this woman is, y'all
Because
call
the
ICE.
stupid black
Call ICE.
Republicans
Call
that are
ICE.
being controlled by the white tea brought this up. And it seems to be that some of you on the Democratic Party side are also getting along. So you want to pick that fight? We can do so. Yeah, we can ask our 54% vote to boycott the coming elections. Oh, yes, I can guarantee you. When
She thinks that little small, minute percentage, and she's from Nigeria, and you're talking about they only make up a few 100,000. So out of 300 plus million people, 320, 325, whatever it was, million people in America, and this section, I'm talking about within her, within Nigeria, I'm talking about the numbers of good ones, which is going to be small because it's only certain amount of Nigerians that are allowed to come to America. And there's got to be coons like her or anti-American black ones like her and stuff like that that can slot under the banner of black, right? So the Nigeria, you look up Nigerian demographics, they only make up a few 100,000. While black folks make up again, plus or minus, right, about 35, 40, some plus million. So a few 100,000 Nigerians, right, especially most of them be coons, versus 35 to about 40 some plus million black Americans. And they think they matter in the elections. This kind of coon. When the majority of black personnel is voted for, and I'm going on it, but the point I'm making is that you don't sit there and hear the Republicans, Democrats saying, I wonder what the numbers of coon Nigerians, the ones it applies to, who are they going to vote for? Right?
we boycott it, you will have no seat.
She full of shit. Most of the ones that are here can't even vote, y'all. Most of the ones here can't even vote. And the fact that she think it's more Africans here than us, that right there tells you she don't know what the hell she's talking about.
So I'm just going to stop that part there before I go ahead and show one last video on that part. And again, this is why I say when it comes down to it, these little tethers, these little black adjacent hodders, where they have not been used to black Americans, ones this applies to, because there's still quite a number of ones that still haven't got through the skull, that there are a lot of hatred numbers of ones from certain, there are a lot of numbers of hatred type of personnel that has a melanation of black from certain sections of Africa once applies to, but the ones that have a hatred for black Americans because they had to flee to America and some other places, and black Americans don't have a history of fleeing, right? And so some of these little tethers, these little black adjacent hodders, they can't stand that, right? And they actually think they're smarter than black Americans. And if they so damn smart, but they can't even sit there and get their own countries in various parts of Africa situated. I'm talking about these fleers. The nerve, right? So the last thing I want to sit there and show is share this video. Give me a second here. I mean, the irony of these. Oh, for a second. First payment. Okay. The irony. Make sure. So the irony of this, right? Of these black adjacent hodders, tethers that had to flee from various sections of the ancient continent, like the video I showed you from the sister Elisa Cabrera, and a few other black Americans who brought this up. Not a lot of like this hateful Nigerian woman, the one it applies to, that had this ingrained this vitriol hatred for American blacks, right? And they think American blacks are supposed to just be keep being people that people walk over like you walk on a carpet. And then when numbers of black Americans say, no, I think it's best for us to do delineation. Y'all being divisive and you got numerous tribes in numerous of tribes in Nigeria, and she ain't gonna talk about that tribalism. She ain't gonna say we being divisive. She ain't gonna talk about, we talking about the top of the Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has many types of tribes, clans themselves, and some of the main ones is the Shona people, and I forgot the other one they was talking about. She's not gonna go tell the Shona people, you can't be divisive with numbers of the other tribal clans. Y'all need to come together. They'd be like, you don't get out of here. Who the hell are you? You from Nigeria? Or get out of here. Go mind your own business, your own tribe. Right? So this little anti-American black tribalism, hateful, vitriol spearing Nigerian woman, the one I just showed you not too long ago, she has nerve on that because she won't do a damn thing to help, like in this topic, the Zimbabweans who are sitting there getting messed over by numbers of white farmers, and then how numbers of Zimbabweans, the ones applies to the control or the one that's in certain politicalness, how they are wanting numbers of the white farmers back. That is some irony of embarrassment on that situation. So let me go ahead and play this.
Itself. Hyperinflation. This is a $100 trillion banknote from Zimbabwe, one of the most worthless currencies ever. The paper it's printed on is worth more than the money itself. Hyperinflation has come down hard on the country. At its peak in 2008, prices doubled every 24 hours. People went to sleep thinking they were middle class, only to find out the next day that they were now poor. Food prices rose so quickly that Zimbabwe, once a regional breadbasket, had to import food from abroad just to feed its population. At the same time, the national debt piled up, and obligations to international creditors restrained how it could spend its budget. Not long after, economic decline set in, productivity dropped, and events like droughts and natural disasters made the situation even worse. Today, Zimbabwe has one of the worst economies in the world. About 1 out of every 3 people lives in extreme poverty. But now, the government is looking to make things right. It's addressing the point where it all went downhill, when it confiscated land from its white farmers and forced them to leave. That decision triggered the country's economic collapse, and since 2017, the government has been negotiating for the return of its white Zimbabwean community, looking to make things right. It's addressing the point where it all went downhill, when it confiscated land from its white farmers and forced them to leave. That decision triggered the country's economic collapse, and since 2017, the government has been negotiating for the return of its white Zimbabwean community. However, reconciliation has not been easy, and resentment runs high. White farmers are skeptical about the government's sincerity, while indigenous Zimbabwean farmers fear losing their newly acquired properties. Something has to give. While history holds grudges, hunger doesn't.
So the embarrassing part of that. And so what I sit there and show, you know what? Let me go back. I want to show you some of these comments. Oh man, let me go back. Let me show you something. Let me go back. Some of these comments were this interesting, and this the embarrassment, and shows a lot of powerlessness that's going on over in various parts of Zimbabwe, and stuff like that. Well, okay, let me show some of these comments. This is embarrassing. So that last video, why Zimbabwe wants its white farmers back, right? After Zimbabwe, prior to 1980, fighting and all that kind of stuff like that, strife going on, and at one time being known as Rhodesia on that, after Cecil Rhodes, the Cecil terrorism Rhodes and stuff like that, who did so much damage to numbers of Zimbabweans and Zambians and numbers of South Africans, right? And took over those numbers of those places, especially Zambia and Zimbabwe, and basically ridded off numbers of black Zimbabweans, or numbers of black African Zimbabweans, and try to kick them off their farm to give it to white farmers. And all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, so these different generations now, bam, right? Why Zimbabwe wants his white farmers back. The embarrassment of this. What's this about hero? I'm just gonna read a few ones. A white farmer would be crazy to move back there. So confiscated and forced to leave is probably the nicest way you could have described it. The Zimbabwean don't actually feel bad for what they did to them. They just regret the consequences of what they did to them. The sudden removal of farmers. Yeah, bro, they were slaughtered in their homes and their land was stolen. Before Zimbabwe used candles as a source of light, they used electricity. Okay. Personal old pizza. Well, we're going to all that. African leaders trying not to be corrupt. Challenge, level impossible. It takes a very special kind of dumb assery to destroy your own food supply. Any farmers or any white farmers reading this, don't go back. They cut down the largest, most productive citrus farm in the world and use it for firewood. They deserve to go hungry. The white farmers basically will still be farming somewhere else. Years ago, I had a work colleague whose in-laws were Zimbabwe farmers. They said if they're white or black. Just as they handed over their land. Oh, I guess that'd be white Zimbabwe farmers, which that's oxymoronic terminology. Just as they handed over their land, the new owner asked them why the tractors wouldn't start. You need to fill them with diesel twice a week, was the reply. So how do I get the money for diesel? He asked. To the black Zimbabwe, you get a loan, fill them up, work the land, grow your crops, sell your produce, use the money to pay off the loan, refill your tractors, and repeat the cycle. This was far too complicated, so they abandoned the farm and sold the tractors and all the equipment for scrap. They were probably starved to death within 6 months. While returned, they just get blamed for whatever happens next. No thanks, they made their own bed, now they sleep in it. Wow. The embarrassment, the very embarrassment part of that. That's embarrassing on that situation. But at the same time, you have certain type of, which I showed earlier. I'm not talking about numbers of good brothers and sisters from some parts of Africa. I showed a video of this hateful anti-American black Nigerian woman, tribalism, one who fled herself from Nigeria, whatever tribalism going on over there still, fled to America, either when she was young or she was older, just regurgitated the same thing to get over here and stuff like that. Or her mom and dad or both fled from Nigeria, and she has a nerve to talk down upon black Americans. And she was talking about how that black Americans don't want to go to war with Africans. And you show what you see what I just showed you about numbers of Zimbabweans, how political ones that on this show topic, Zimbabwe's or however political ones and however other ones make reparation compensation to white farmers. Right? So you got these fleers that ran from various parts of the ancient continent of Africa, fled to America, have the nerve to flee. And when America has already been built up by black Americans, and also ones within certain parts of Anglo-American, but black Americans are the foundation of building America themselves, right? With free labor and black pain, hateful laws, hateful policies, more lynchings than any other culture, more hate crime laws than any other culture, and get no reparations. And you got these fleers from various sections of Africa fleeing from people that look like them to America. And those are the ones that are allowed to come over to America are mostly going to be coons and sellouts. And so the nerve of some of these fleers, it's like, again, ask this question, just like on this topic. Where's all the Pan Africanism ones that also fled to America? Going to supplies to. Why aren't they going back to Africa and sit there and getting control over numbers of other secondary or third-ary foreign invaders. Why are they not doing that? And this topic, why are they not sitting there going to Zimbabwe and help them out? See how this game goes, right? So the thing about it is, American blacks more hopefully will even more start checkmating numbers of these fleers that have this extreme hatred for American blacks. It's like this video right here on this. This is symbolism of, say, numbers of hateful black adjacent hodders, tethers from certain sections of Africa. The ones it applies to, not to my numbers of good brothers and sisters, but those are going to be very small. Overall, the ones that are allowed to come to America, the FLIR version especially, are the ones that's used as a buffer class, as a black adjacent hodder class on that situation. And again, don't get it confused. There are ones within certain parts of the Caribbean islands, the ones applies to that fled too. And there's no there's no Pan-Caribbean love either. Look at what's going on in Haiti. There's no Pan-Caribbean love to help Haiti out. Look at what's going on in Cuba. There's no Pan-Caribbean love going to Cuba and helping their Caribbean counterparts over there. Nope, because they don't care. But Black Americans are supposed to be the personnel that's supposed to save various melanation. You see the game of that, right? And so more Black Americans better wake up and start roasting more people who are fleeing from certain sections of Africa and some other places. The ones it applies to, they have hatred toward American black, as the video I showed you with the anti-American black hateful Nigerian, the ones it applies to, whatever tribe she was from, right? And so I make this point, the symbolism in this particular cartoon 3 seconds clip. Symbolism of hateful personnel, fleers, hateful black adjacent hodders, fleers, right? And they have the nerve to talk down upon American blacks. I put 2 videos in the description. One about, it was a group of Nigerians that was transnational, transinternational fraudulent criminals from Nigeria. Description. And the other one I put on there was also from Nigeria, the one this applies to, 4 or 5 different Nigerian men that was trying to flee from Africa, trying to flee from Nigeria to try to get, I think it was across the Mediterranean, wherever it is, trying to flee. But the video I showed you earlier, a piece of video I showed you earlier from Sister Cabrera, I think some other ones have showed this too, is that the hateful anti-American black Nigerian woman talking about Black Americans, y'all don't want the war toward Africans. You see how this sounds, the silly hypocrisy and the hatefulness, right? And so Black Americans better start more doing something like this too, symbolism, right? When you got the hateful ones, the black tether versions, should we say, that hide under the black adjacent hodder mantra, like this. Yes. One last time. More Black Americans. Now, that's the ones that ain't gonna get it through their skull, right? Ain't gonna get it. But the ones who do get it, a few more Black Americans do get it. Just like the situation will happen with the Essence Festival, that I also did a video on that, about the Essence Festival on that, on Essence magazine, where you had the gentleman from Liberia who fled, or his mom, I think his mom fled from Liberia with political strife that was going on over there. And however, he had a counterpart that fled too, or however his parents fled too, right? And however personnel bought Essence magazine, which had already been around for almost 30-something years. And so when he had a chance to basically come by and buy it, he bought for pennies of the dollar, right? Because different things were going on. So you had certain ones that was in certain parts of Africa who were like, well, why certain numbers of Black Americans get mad at certain, numbers of personnel that bought, now African personnel that bought up Essence, because if y'all wanted to do it, well, y'all should have bought it up. Again, had already been at the apex already before the Liberian guy and whatever his friend or mom, whatever it is, bought the Essence magazine. And so the Essence Festival, the numbers are going dwindling, and people trying to blame Black Americans, and Black Americans say, no, we ain't playing that tactic because you're trying to Pan Africanize and stuff like that. So they're trying to push it back with some tether talk, some Black adjacent talk, right? So the thing about it is there is a hatred by certain ones within certain parts of Africa, the one it applies to, right? Related to this topic, right? And the hypocrisy of numbers of ones, they not going to Zimbabwe and help the Zimbabweans out with their white farmer problem. You got 50 some plus countries going on in Africa, and how many can't stand one another? But you got these tethers run over to America, and numbers of them are legal. Yes, I don't talk about that. How many of those tethers, how many of those Black adjacent houses also legal? Or they came over illegally, but how many sit there was begging to come over that they could even fix the problems going on in Africa? Right? And this is why I say in closing, numbers of Black Americans better sit there and keep those eyes open to the numbers of these tethers, these Black adjacent hiders, because they're over here to sit there and infiltrate. So symbolism, like this picture, I'm closing when I sit there and show this, the symbolism. This represents numbers of tethers, represents Black adjacent hiders with these arrows, and they're trying to, put them toward Black Americans, and Black Americans need to be trying to do this back. Yes. 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 I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.